everyone, welcome to The Hype, where great minds collide and ideas amplify. I'm your host, Jingjing. This show aims to bring talented people from around the world to share their insights on hot topics. And this episode, we come to Paris. And joining me today are four talented young people from France, from China, and we will discuss how to break barriers and build bonds among the people in France and in China. So without further ado, let's meet our guests. So how about I let your guests tell our viewers about yourself. Let's start with you, Lingling.
你好，我是玲玲，然后我是一个音乐博主，平时会在社交媒体上发一些视频，但同时我也是一个街头艺术家，然后我会在巴黎的街头、法国街头表演中国的乐曲。
So sitting next to me is Mao Lingling. She's a Chinese and she's a great artist. So in the past few months, she performed some great Chinese music on the streets across France. So later in this show, she will also show us some Chinese music. So stay tuned. And David, tell us about yourself.
I'm David Boursaly, and I'm a former member of the French diplomatic staff in China. And from then on, I've started several ventures, all linked to China. And I'm happy to be with you today.
Thank you for coming.
Welcome.
And this beautiful lady.
Okay, nice to meet you guys. My name is Yakun. I'm currently a communication student in Sciences Po. And this is the second year that I've came to France. And I am also working right now in the very iconic luxury industry in France.
Thanks for coming. And last but not least, Zacharie Petit.
Hi, my name is Zacharie Petit. I'm a Ph.D. Student at the Sorbonne. I work on fiction narratives and philosophy. And I've been working in the music and media field also for a few years now, working for international media.
So great. Each of you come from a different background, from business, from art, from movie. So, we're looking forward to hear your insights. So, my first question for all of you is, can you share with us your unique stories with China and with France? So, I would like to start with you, David.
Oh, okay.
So I know you've been to China for many years. You live and work in China, and you were actually in China a few weeks ago.
Yes.
So tell us about your story.
Yes, exactly. So I've been working in China or with China for the last 15 years already. And I was there 2 weeks ago. The funny thing is I was not there to meet Chinese this time. Usually I go there to meet Chinese counterparts. And this time I went up the way to Shanghai to meet French people. So from France to Shanghai to meet French people because I'm starting a new venture called youthful. It's a premium edutainment company. And I was looking for a digital agency that could help me on this project because we're a digital company basically. And there is a group of people there called IT Consultis. It's a company specialized in that. And there are two French brothers, Rigard brothers, who started their venture there. And now they have about 60 people helping them, mostly Chinese people, staff. And so if I wanted to see them, I had to go to Shanghai. So now Shanghai is like, New York or Paris. It's really a hub for international business. And sometimes if you want to meet French good business people, you have to go to Shanghai now. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So there's a huge French community in Shanghai.
Oh yeah. When I was in the diplomatic staff there, we were already about 20,000 people, 20,000 French people in Shanghai. But now I guess it's probably a little bit more. There was a little bit decrease in the number of French people around COVID time, but now I think it's again going up. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So Yakun, I know you're a student in France. You speak pretty good French.
I hope so. I try my best.
It's really amazing. So what brings you to France?
Actually, I would say the most direct reason is because even before I came to Shanghai, came to Paris. Sorry, I was in Shanghai studying French for at least
like you mentioned.
exactly for a few years already. So it only makes sense for me to come to the Great Paris and to see and to explore for myself, and that's why I choose to pursue a master's degree after my bachelor in Shanghai. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you do now?
Right now, I am majoring in communication, which is also very relevant on the language topic. And I'm working right now in my gap year in a luxury company in France. As we all know, the luxury industry is absolutely iconic in France, and everyone would love to have a peek inside. So right now I'm working, and I'm hoping to continue my journey next year.
You know, I think especially in recent years, decades ago, probably only luxurious brands come to China. But now I see many French brands are in China now. Some women clothing, cosmetics, just not luxurious, just common brand.
Like fashion brands.
Yeah, everyone is in China now, and they're everywhere. It's not just one or few stores. For example, some brands, I probably should not mention their names for this, but they're in every shopping mall in Beijing, every shopping mall in Shanghai. So I mean that.
Inside a lot of French companies right now, they have new teams dedicated only to the China area because it's such a big market and it's booming. So they have a special team just on the China case. Yeah.
Oh.
The dream market.
Yeah. Okay, Zach. I know you visited China long time ago. Long time ago, yeah.
Perhaps 15 years ago. I must have been something like 12 or 13. I don't know, it left a very long-lasting impression. It was winter and it was just like snowing everywhere, and just like kind of have those engraved memories of, I don't know, food, culture, even music. Even some things that I brought back this long ago we still use in my family. For example, there was tea buds that we took that were dried and that actually survived and pretty much kept their flavor all this time, and we use them every year for my mother's birthday. And then my relationship with China, I think that it's just that I was always interested in folk stories, in what stories shape people in their youth, or how we refer to them even after that, even in industry. And China is so large and has such a long history that, I don't know, from stories of the first emperor to more folk tales like Ganzhong and Moye and things like that. It just is something that I really love studying and I really like learning about and understanding, because I think it serves kind of as a backbone to understand a culture so large and so diverse in a way.
By the way, his knowledge about Chinese culture and Chinese history really surprises me. Well, through the conversations, you know, he reads a lot. Really surprising. So Lingling, I know I watched some videos on YouTube of you performing on the streets across France. So I'm just wondering, what made you decide to come to France to perform Chinese songs?
因为我最开始来到法国的时候，其实法国街头没有什么中国的街头艺人。然后我那个时候其实是在备考嘛，然后我觉得我害怕，我有点紧张，所以说我说我去街头拉琴，然后这样子能够让大家就是让我自己不那么紧张吧。但是呢，我一开始的时候其实是准备的是一些就中国的曲子，想让更有特色一些。然后我出去演出的时候，然后他们会过来问，这是什么音乐，很好听。然后我就告诉他们，这是来自中国的音乐。然后就自此以后，他们就会问，我在什么地方可以再听到？所以我后面又会把这些就是我在街头演出的东西，然后把它放到网上去，让大家听到。因为我觉得其实中国的乐曲其实是很好听的，但是有可能我们没有一个平台，就是能够让其他国家的人听到，所以我觉得我不管是在街头演出， 也好，还是把我的作品放到网上去也好，是一个很好的一个平台吧，就是做我的一点微薄之力，让大家能够听到这么好听的音乐。
Yeah. She said the first time she decided to play Chinese music on the streets is just because of she's tired from studying, she wants to release the stress, so let's perform some songs on the streets. And then a lot of people will come to her and ask, oh, the songs are so beautiful, where can we find those songs? So she's started to do more often on the streets, and she realized many songs in China, music in China, are quite beautiful, but we don't have the platform to reach audiences outside of China. So since people are interested in listening to her performance, so she decided, okay, let's do this more often.
Nice.
So before you go to China, before you come to France, what's the thing that shocked you the most or surprised you the most that is different from what you heard about the country?
As China, there were probably several expectations, and I was very surprised by the openness. Actually, I arrived in China in 2008, and we were celebrating that year the openness reform of China, and the people were really open to foreigners at the time. Like, I know also there were policies towards that, like people were encouraged by the government also to welcome foreigners, but I see it in the eyes of Chinese people when I was there. They were really trying to help, whether we had difficulty, to find a place or even to buy something, because I was living there, everyday life. And that was amazing. I really felt welcomed, and I couldn't expect that. No.
Were you expecting Chinese people will be horrible and tough to you before you visit China?
Honestly, at the time, I was not supposed to go live in China, so I had the basic expectations of a French who doesn't know much about China, and I was expecting it would be a little bit harder to get in touch with Chinese people, but actually it was very easy, and from then on we're still very good friends. Yeah.
Interesting. And then you also worked in the embassy, right?
Yeah, afterwards. So I arrived in China as a student. I was actually a student in a Parisian university called Dauphine nearby. And I arrived there as a student, and I had the opportunity to do a great internship there. And then the embassy, contacted me about that. Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, now this is the surprise about China. What's the surprise about France?
I think I would say maybe the multifacetedness of the French culture, because before I come to France, although I know it's already super famous for its heritage and all, but I didn't know the multifaceted diversity inside this richness before. Like, for example, before I came here, all I know is maybe the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre, and we tend to immediately go to think Mona Lisa when we talk about French culture. But actually, when you actually come to Paris and immerse yourself in this city, it's much more than that. There's so much more than just Le Louvre, and there's so much more interesting museums covering every aspect of art that you can explore here. There are Musée d'Orsay for sure. There are Musée d'Orangerie. There are the Decorative Art Museum. They're really capitulating the whole history of art, like not only in France but worldwide. So I think it's really the destination for people who love art and history to explore here. Yeah, I think that will be a surprise for me, and I know for a lot of my friends as well.
Very nice. If you can recommend something for tourists from China to do, to experience, to learn, what would you recommend?
I would say, apart from all the planning to the most touristy sites, I would recommend them to maybe just take a very simple city walk, because Paris is a very walkable city, and I know Chinese people already are very good at planning to go to the touristy sites. So what I recommend, I think it would be to just chill a little bit, maybe choose one afternoon just to sit in the Luxembourg Garden and to appreciate the city and its vibe.
Zach, you went to China when you were a teenager, and I know culture in China are very different from the whole European culture. So what shocked you or surprised you the most when you first time go to China?
I think two things. The first one is a bit close to your experience, is that in France, Chinese culture is very not monolithic, but I think blended. When you live in the country of your culture, basically, of your ancestral culture, it's very much easier to speak about the details. Whereas in France, I think that maybe people from minorities cannot express as much diversity from their culture and specificity. And so when I arrived in China, I was pretty much open-minded to discover a lot of stuff, but I didn't expect, obviously I could not expect all the diversity, even like just in Beijing. That is the first thing. The second thing is like kind of the balance that you find between the calm and the chaos, I would say. We were pretty jet lagged, and so we arrived in a park. It was like 5:30 in the morning, and we see like old people practicing Tai Chi or Kung Fu, and at the same time, 1 hour later, 3 streets away, you see like an army of people getting to work, but kind of very, I don't know, very heartwarming in a way. So I think that it was that blend of calm and chaos in kind of cohabitation that I really loved in the culture, and the food, of course, but I'm not going to talk about the food all the time. It's said, done, let's move.
But, you know, I remember during our conversations, you mentioned Chinese people's bargaining skills is really surprising, right?
In France, you don't bargain, it's impolite.
What year did you go to China?
I went 2008, I think.
Yeah.
So
Same
just
than
before
me. Yeah, I think it has changed quite a lot. I mean, in the biggest cities at least, yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably less now in this case, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to go back,
Yeah.
not too long.
I think the first time for both of you to go to China is 2008.
Olympic Games.
Yes,
here,
Olympic
yeah.
Games. And
Yeah.
this year, Olympic Games will take
Yeah.
place in Paris, right? A lot of
Yeah.
Chinese people will come to Paris for this reason as well. So, I mean, what a great coincidence.
That's right, yeah. That's why I'm happy to be here, yeah.
Okay. Now I hear so many great stories from you. I would like to ask you a little bit tougher question. Well, not really tough, but just like I want to talk about the misunderstandings. Because we come from very different cultures, very different languages. So sometimes how can we help like understand each other? Let's start with each other's misunderstandings. So maybe what are the common misunderstandings that people tend to have about China and about France? Who want to start first?
I have one. Well, I would say it's relatively common misunderstanding about China that I've perceived here in France. Well, it's on the quality of Chinese products. So basically, when I hear made in China, it's either a neutral term or even a good term for me. But apparently I think here they have a different connotation, because for a lot of French people who doesn't really, use Chinese product daily, or who doesn't really know what exact product we are producing here, they tend to think that it means it's not that good when we say made in China. And this is really something that I was trying so hard with my friends to kind of turn that idea to the other side, because very often they will see something in my room or something I'm wearing, and they will be asking, oh, what is this brand? Where did you get it? And then I'll be saying, oh, I get it from China, or my mom just sent it from China. And they're surprised because it's so good and nice and cheap at the same time, and it's impressive. So I think it's kind of a stereotype that we still have right now here in France. But I think, well, I'm confident that it's going to change over time. And I think maybe it's something that we, as people who come from China and live in France, can help accelerate the process by, advocating organically, of course, to people around us. Yeah.
There were some Chinese-made products were not that well. Some of them were with poor quality, some are good quality.
Exactly.
But nowadays, many domestic brands in China are catching up and even surpass many international brands. So like 10 years ago when I traveled around the world, I want to buy everything from that country. But now, like, I see no point of buying something. I'm sorry, but like, sometimes I'm like, oh, we have that in China, actually at a much reasonable, affordable price and a much better quality sometimes. And so I think there's a change. Like Chinese brands are catching up and even surpass many international competitors. So in China when we say made in China, it represents good quality.
Yeah, I think it's because the quality is getting better and better, but maybe somehow the image stays the same. That's the problem. Yeah.
There's one thing I often say to French people who are talking about the made in China in a bad way. I say, do you know that most of the high-tech goods you have here in France are actually made in China?
Oh yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah. It helps them to understand that, yeah. Like the phones, I won't, say the famous brands, but they are made there, right?
Yeah. By the way, you are from like business industry. You've been doing trades for many years, so you have much better knowledge than most of us, I guess. So what's the common misunderstandings people tend to have about China or France?
I would talk about maybe the misunderstanding that Chinese people have towards French, because you were talking about the opposite. So one thing is, again, about expectations. I would say a lot of Chinese people, when they come to France for the first time, sometimes, for business or tourism, they're expecting a very smooth and sometimes even romantic country, which, they can find places like this in France. I know, the lavender places do exist, and I actually work with a place called Maison de la Lavande, House of Lavender, in Ardèche, in south of France, and it's a magic place. If you go there all along the year, you find this romanticism, and also the place is very smooth, very well organized. But there are also a lot of places in France where it's not so smooth, Sometimes when tourists or business people arrive in the airport or in the train station, they are surprised by a little bit chaotic atmosphere. So if the expectations level is okay, I think that's important, because if we expect too much from France, there might be a little bit of disappointment. And
are you asking us to not have such high expectations about France?
Well, because sometimes it has a pretty bad effect on the experience of Chinese people coming to France, and with time in the relationship between French people and Chinese people, then Chinese people would understand that yes, we do have this France they are looking for, and those French people they are looking for, but we can't say it's everywhere like that. So. I was working a lot in the cultural shock sector, let's say, in this field, to help also my Chinese counterparts to do not expect too much when they come, and then just enjoy and discover little by little what they like in France.
To jump on that track, I think that the thing that both parties involved get wrong is the diversity within each of the countries and cultures, and that I think the romantic part of France and of Paris is not just a question of space or of heritage. It's a question of culture, and culture is something that you get little by little. You cannot access culture in a very fast way, because you can only get lost in a culture that way. It's a really good thing, and to have that frontal experience, but also to be open to all the rest of the experience, because I think that French people are very, for historical, structural, cultural reason, they are very diverse, actually, people, with lots of different influences and lots of different origins. And so perhaps it's not only Chinese people, but a lot of people who come to Paris have that idea that it's going to be only that thing. But I think that one of the most beautiful feelings you can have is to see your world extending, to see that there was an area on the map that you didn't suspect, that have kind of that thrill of discovering something that you never would have suspected. And I think it's the same thing for French people when they look at China. They see a country on which they have most of the time barely any knowledge, because we don't have time to be specialized in every single culture and country in the world. But if it's more than 1 billion people on one of the largest territories in the world, and that has been unified for what, 2,300 years. I think that there's going to be specificities that you're not going to get in your country or in books, and that at some point being open to those areas of the map that are still dark for you and that can contain wonder, I think is the one thing that we both have to work on, basically. Because I think that those romantic experiences that you can have in Paris are not the only interesting feeling that you can have in Paris. We have like a very interesting urban art scene. We have a very interesting contemporary art scene, music scene, and it's not only the postcard Paris, let's say. It's more so the one that Parisians live in.
I agree with you. Both of the countries, the culture are very diverse. So if to those of people who are interested in traveling to China, so I recommend, besides visiting Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Shenzhen, those big metropolitans, go to some of the other provinces, like in the southwest, Guangxi province, Yunnan province, Xinjiang province, Inner Mongolia, because in China, not everybody look like me. We have 56 different ethnic groups, and each ethnic group have a very different cultures from the others. Some are very good at dancing, music, and some of them are good at, the culture is very different. But if you go to the southwest of China, you will see, it probably will break your stereotype. You will see a completely different China that you have never read.
That's, right? I think you agree, but that's one of the main things that's very surprising when we enter China for the first time, is to see all the ethnicities, and it's very more diverse than we could imagine. Yeah.
But also for France, we are a much smaller country with a much smaller population, but I think like between Parisian culture and Occitanian culture, for example, south of France, or even like Basque country, it's very, very different, and it's a shame not to get to know those places as well. They might not have the Eiffel Tower, but they have pretty amazing things.
Do you want to add on something, Lili?
是的，就像你刚刚说的，就是其实中国有很多的文化嘛，然后就包括我自己学音乐，我发现最近几年中国有很多的民族音乐，然后会放在那种 pop music， 就流行乐里边，然后我觉得非常的棒。然后我到法国之后，我学的这边其实大部分是古典音乐，然后我觉得其实我觉得我们可以相互借鉴一下，包括中国的创作可以多去看一看，法国的古典音乐有多么好。然后我觉得法国的音乐创作者或者也可以多去中国的云南呀、广西啊、新疆去体验一下中国的文化，中国的多元的文化，然后去寻找更多的灵感。我觉得这个是很有意思的。
She mentioned because she majored in music. She noticed in recent years many traditional ethnic music are mixing with other pop music, for example, rock music. So different attempts to give new life to the traditional music in China. And now she's studying classic music in France. And she loves the music in France. And maybe one day there's some new remix bringing French music with different ethnic groups' traditional music in China. That made me something new, something interesting. And I want to add on that because earlier this year, there are some French musical actors has been touring around China. For example, the actors of Dan Juan.
Don Juan. But it's a Spanish name actually, so it's Don Juan.
Don Juan.
Yeah.
So you were good.
So you were, close.
Right. I'm pronouncing the Spanish way, right? But the actors were performing on China's annual most important gala, the Spring Festival Gala. The whole 1.4 billion people will be watching that show. It means a lot to us. So the actors were performing on China's national stage, and the actors were touring across Chinese cities, and they appeared on CGTN's show as well. So I mean, they are bringing more talents, more cultural stuff from France to China. So I think maybe one day we'll see a collaboration. And I want to emphasize her dress as well, because the dress that she's wearing is called Ma Mian Qun. It's the traditional Chinese dress that Han ethnic group is wearing. especially in Ming Dynasty, in Song Dynasty. And now these traditional dresses are much more commonly seen on Chinese streets. Actually, if you go to Xi'an nowadays, you will see people from different dynasties walking on the streets because they wear Song clothes, Tang clothes, different dynasties. It becomes so common. You encounter some emperors from the Tang dynasty. So just to add on the arts part. What did you want to add?
I was thinking about the medicine field, where there is already what you're talking about, this kind of collaboration between Western medicine, where France is actually very good, and Chinese medicine, which is also very complementary. And a friend of mine is a French, but he has started a website to explain Chinese medicine called meandshi.com, and it's trying to unify those two fields of medicine, and we're probably going to see that in music more and more. And on my side, I'm trying through the association way to promote that. We'll organize soon in southern France, in Montélimar. It's a medium-sized city in France, at the Gate of Provence, a concert with Chinese artists and also French artists, and also including a little bit of digital art. And to have this friendship about culture. I should invite you. Let's talk about this later.
By the way, David, because you have been working in the business field for such a long time, have you seen the improvement in terms of the business relationship between China and France? What the environment is like for China and France in terms of trade and business?
It's amazing. It's really getting better every year, I would say. And for me, as a French business people, when I go to China, I'm amazed by the fluidity of everything. And like you can cross the country within one day. It's huge, right? It's a continent country, a continent-sized country. And I would say the business environment in China is really good for French people, because people in China, they are very reactive. They reply to the minute to anything, and it's good for French people to go there sometimes to get this kind of power, and when we come back to France, we try to keep this,
I would say I pretty much agree 100% with what David just said. I think it would be nice to have a more concrete image once we reach the country and have, see for ourselves. And it's always useful to do that, because that's the only way we can tangibly break the stereotypes and, maybe potentially in the future tell other people around us, how the real reality is across the continent. Yeah, so I definitely think it's a good idea. And I personally would also love to do something like David after my graduation. Yeah.
By the way, Lingling, since you're going to perform later, do you need to prepare your instrument? You need some time to prepare? Right? Okay. So go prepare and we'll continue. So I'm just wondering, we all mentioned breaking stereotypes. Can you share your experience, your stories of breaking the stereotypes about a certain group of people? David, how about you? I mean, what did you do to break the stereotypes, and how to break the barriers and build bonds?
For me, the main thing in my life, and also I guess probably for the future of French-China relationship towards that, is probably to focus on the young generation, and especially the student exchange programs, because if we manage to have young people, meeting each other from both cultures from early age, and that's also something I'm trying to promote with my wife through the association world mainly. If we manage to have the kids from early age and the students later on to live with each other, let's say for maybe 1 year during their studying time, it's then a lifelong friendship they would have. And I believe it would be probably the main focus to stop all those stereotypes.
I feel the same, because when you meet young people from other countries, the kids, they are open-minded, they are like a blank paper, They don't have the bias, they don't have hate, they just very excited to learn from different cultures, different languages, and just happy to meet people from different parts of the world. So I agree, we should let young people from China and France to meet, to talk, and build connections from a very early age, right?
Very important.
Yakun, what about you?
I think, well, as a student myself, I definitely see this as a great opportunity and a way to do this. Because right now, I believe a lot of the universities here and Grande École here in Paris, we are having a lot of exchange programs with universities in China, in all over China, not just in Beijing and Shanghai. So I think that's a really good sign, and that's really something important that we need to do after the pandemic, since the communication and exchange were kind of cut during a few years. So now is really the time to get back to the field and continue this cultural exchange between the two countries.
Yeah.
I think telling the stories is like the most important thing. But I think that from the moment that you give someone the knowledge that there is something to find somewhere else, and that is what I've been trying to do also a bit in my work in philosophy. I think that's a way that you can. I don't think that telling someone that the stereotype is wrong it's necessary, but it's not always the most efficient. I think that they have to realize for themselves that the stereotype is. So to give them the tools for them to make their research in a more enlightened way, let's say.
You mentioned telling stories. So I'm curious, what kind of stories about China that people in France will be interested in to see, to hear?
Let's say cultural stories, cultural tales. And I think it's just realizing that we have the same kind of obsessions in the stories that we tell each other or tell our kids or rely upon as cultures. We want to know where we come from. We want to know why things are the way they are, or how we invented something, or why the stars are a certain way, why the moon is here. And so even though we have science to tell us the proper answer, I think that just witnessing how others came up with different explanations that are maybe as untrue but as beautiful as the ones that we had at the same time period is one way of just like seeing that you have more in common with every single people than you will have ever any difference with them. And I think in that way, since stories are an expression of who we are personally and as a culture, seeing that all the cultures that you can come across had the same problems they had to face, the same questions they had to explain at different levels and different moments is a great way to show that you're basically not alone, and there's a lot more people like you that you could find and meet, I think.
Lovely. Speaking of bringing cultural stories, let's bring some cultural stories here. Lingling, you're ready? Well, so, okay. Can you tell us more about the song? Why you want to play this song?
这首歌呢是中国很出名的一个就是创作者周杰伦他创作的《花海》。然后我觉得现在嘛，然后已经快到了就鲜花盛开的时候了，然后也要大家一块儿迎接奥运了。然后我觉得可以用这首《花海》，然后让大家感受一下，就是法国的美好的。
Okay. So this song is by the most prominent singer in China, Jay Chou. I recommend to before. The name of the song is Flower Sea because it's about the blooming season in France. So that's the song she wants to bring to the audiences. And actually, she has injuries in her hands, so she's only playing with the violin with 2 fingers on his left hand, her left hand. So, well, but I'm sure you're gonna love this song.
Nice.
Well, I'm not professional singer, but that's the best I can do. Sorry. Thank you so much. Thank you. What a great performance. Wow. And with this beautiful scenery in the background, I love this scene. Music, the Eiffel Tower. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. But so before we end this discussion, I'm wondering, what do you want to tell to people in China and in France? So I will go, maybe start from you, Lingling.
我吗？因为最近不是马上要奥运了嘛，然后我觉得法国的朋友们已经准备好了，要迎接大家了。然后法国这边做了一个文化奥林匹克的，就是这样的一个长期的活动。然后呢，就是有非常多的文化艺术和体育之间的结合。然后我自己也做了一个就是相关的展览，做中国运动美学的展览，邀请了国外的一些艺术家，法国的艺术家，中国艺术家，大家去聊一聊中国的运动美学。所以如果大家有空的话，5月13号到19号可以过来玩。
在哪里？
就在那个奥贝哈的旁边。
Okay.
然后
So she's actually gonna do an exhibition. She invited artists from China and France to do a collaboration to showcase the beauty of sports, sports from China as well. So it's during it's customized for like Olympic Games, but it's in May, right? May, from May 几号到几号
13号到19号。
From May the 13th to 19th in Paris. So anyone interested into seeing
Sure.
Seeing the arts,
Yeah.
understand the
Exposition de jeux chinois.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. So David, what's your word to people in China and France?
Well, if I may, this year is the 60th anniversary of French-China diplomatic ties and overall relationship. And if I could say something to the Chinese people, I would be happy. I would say, please remember that forever and keep a place in your heart for French people, because the history we have in common is very precious, very unique. So let's keep going together.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, for me, I think I have a very similar message, in this special occasion, also on the anniversary of the diplomatic ties between the two countries. I would really love to say that I think historical-wise and also in most recent years, we are two countries that have always maintained a very friendly relationship. And this is, of course, because we have so much in common, both culture-wise and with our people. And I really would love to see that continues and reaching yet another milestone in our relationship. And also, I am really thrilled to see the Olympics coming to the amazing city of Paris.
Yeah, and just to add on that, it's quite easy for Chinese people to travel to France.
Oh, yes.
And especially this year marks the 60th anniversary of China-France diplomatic ties. And this new policy made it much easier for French people to visit China. Now it's visa-free this year.
I've seen that 2 weeks ago. Very convenient.
Very convenient. That's why you can always fly to Shanghai to meet French people.
That's right. That's right.
So anybody, we as a Chinese, we would like to send invitation letter to all the people in France. Come visit China.
Nice.
Zach, what's your words to them?
I think for both French and Chinese people, but maybe largely I think it doesn't just apply to these two. I think it's to remain curious. The world has never been more open than now. So perhaps being curious also starts with accepting that you don't know and that you can learn from others. So both for French and Chinese people and anyone watching.
Okay,
very
beautiful words.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you guys for sharing your stories with China, with France, and I do hope everybody, let's communicate. Understanding starts from communicating. So we should communicate more and maybe we'll be friends forever. Okay, great. Thank you so much for watching The Hype, and we'll continue to bring people from around the world to share their insights on hot topics. And see you next time. Bye.